Zero Visibility is sponsored by no one, but do visit alternacomics.com for all your comic needs. And let's start the show. I was thinking about Alterna Comics the other day.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, as I tend to
you
do.
and me both.
How you doing, Pete?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, great so far. Peephole Circus, welcome to the nest. Good to see you. So I saw on Twitter there you're going to get your digital King Cryptids out today.
Yep. So go get your digital bundle. I don't think it's that expensive either. I think it's like $5 to $7 for the 4 issues. If you want a sneak peek, print is preferred, at least for me. But if you want your digital bundle of King Cryptid 1 to 4, it's going out today.
Totally. Well, that's the digital, and that means so it's going to the printer.
It's going to the printer tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
And then I should have it in a few weeks. Based on their past track record, I should have it in a few weeks. And then fulfillment for the print issues with everything else in the campaign will start towards the end of the month, maybe early April. This campaign has been odd. So I've had a lot of different perks throughout the campaign for full moon and new moon specials because of the way that King Cryptid's powers, the height of his powers are the full moon, and then they're at their lowest in the new moon.
Right.
So I fulfilled a lot of perks already. I fulfilled almost like 500 at this point. Yeah. So so a lot of people already have a lot of their stuff, but everybody that's been waiting on the print comics, they're going to start getting all of that good stuff coming in real soon.
And those are plant-based?
Oh, of course. I took the meat out of them a couple of years ago.
Oh, thank goodness. I was a little.
The only meat in them now is the story.
Awesome. And then the winter campaign's still going.
Yeah, the winter campaign is still going. March 20th is the last day to purchase a bunch of different perks, like the Unit 44 shirt, the Alterna jersey. There's still some ad perks for Horace Hoover and Unit 44. A couple other perks like 6x9 prints and the sketch card commissions. But other than that, that's on course still, and then we'll get that to the printer sometime in April. I can't get them both printed at the same time. I want to make sure that I dedicate at least a few solid weeks of King Cryptid fulfillment before I gear up for the Alterna winter fulfillment. But then the spring campaign for Alterna will launch probably sometime around like mid-May or so. And we're not having a summer campaign. The summer campaign is now going to be replaced by the King Cryptid campaigns every year around June.
Oh, that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
So you're not? Are you launching the next King Cryptid this summer?
Yep, this summer for issues 5 to 9. So I figured by the time it'll be about maybe a couple weeks to a month after fulfillment is done with the King Cryptid campaign for 1 to 4, and then issues 5 to 9 will launch. Hopefully everybody had a chance to take a look at those first 4 issues, and then they'll have all their stuff, and then issues 5 to 9 we can launch that around June or so. And that'll be the same kind of thing, about a year or so to complete and fulfill. And that's 5 issues. And I'm really looking forward to that campaign because there's so much awesome stuff to build upon for the first 4 issues. It's a self-contained episodic series, but there's a lot of organic world building that occurs because of that. So there's more characters introduced in 5 to 9. We also touch upon some events from 1 to 4. And then I got a lot of really cool and fun merch planned out, boxes of trading cards, like actually designing a box, like a sealed box of trading cards. A couple other cool things too, based on characters that were in issues 1 to 4 that I really couldn't merchandise at the time because people weren't really familiar with them. So between that and then the new issues, and then having like technically you could order 9 issues on the next campaign. So if you missed the first 4 issues on the original campaign here, you can catch up. A new collector case, so you can start building that second out of the 5 collector cases to
Right.
make like that bookshelf look to them. There's so much long-term stuff playing with King Cryptid, and that's basically because I'm going to be doing it my whole life. But I've got a lot of issues planned. Hope everybody's here for the ride.
I think you know what I was. This is one of the things I was thinking about today. I've seen um, in the past year, 2 years maybe, a lot of properties come to light, and they're your traditional Kickstarter or your Indiegogo or whatever, and that takes about a year and a half to get done. Usually, if the person's on the ball, and then sometimes for whatever reason, financial reasons, they decide they don't want to do it. They just go ahead and they stop completely, and it's usually on a cliffhanger. So this thing that could be done with a complete story and just kind of be this quirky little cool thing in your collection kind of ends up something that's just it's never going to get fulfilled. You're never going to know what's going to happen, and it's an incomplete story, which is why I was so excited to hear you say that these are kind of TV style, one
Yeah.
and done situations. So even if you were to decide, God forbid, if you were to decide, you know what, I'm gonna say 25 issues, I'm great. I've got my legacy secured. It's good. There's that nice collection of great complete stories that people can go back and revisit over and over again. It's it's there. There's nothing
Yeah,
to
you
worry
can
about.
still enjoy them. You're never gonna
Yeah.
feel like you're in the middle of a story. We're only gonna have one story arc. It's a 3 issue story arc, issues 10, 11, and 12, and in the first 20 to 25 issues, and then every other issue is still gonna just be this episodic style. They all, I mean, you benefit from reading all of them because you get all that continuity, you get the references that as the plots build up, as characters return and things like that. You
Mhm.
get the history of what's occurring, and there is an overarching subplot, but it's never like you could read issue 20, when that comes around and not feel like I'm completely lost. Who the hell are these
Right.
people? What is this? Which is what I loved about comics when I got into comics. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm reading them in issues like 200 something. I'm not starting Spider-Man on issue 1. I'm not starting
Right.
X-Men on issue 1. I'm in there at like I think like 242 or something was like my first X-Men, something around there. And then like 178 of like Spectacular Spider-Man or something was my first issue of that. And I never felt like I don't know what is Spider-Man about. I never felt completely lost as to like who's bad, who's good, what's going on, who are these people, what are they about. The strong characterization was there, and there was a plot. There was an introduction to the plot. There was a
Hmm.
situation set up. There was a conflict. There was something that happened within the conflict or within the plot that either furthered it or made it twist. And then there was some kind of resolution to what
Right.
occurred in that plot, but it wasn't maybe a resolution, of course, that occurs within the series.
And maybe a
And
little thread to pay off three
and
issues later.
yeah, exactly. And that's just like episodic self-contained
Hmm.
101. Somewhere along the way, a lot of storytelling across the board, not just within comics, but like television
Oh
too,
yeah.
turned into like if you go into something like episode 12 of a series or something, you're gonna feel so lost,
Mm.
and there's
Because they're
something
13-hour movies now.
yeah, but meanwhile, you can go back to like I don't know, watch like Columbo or watch Seinfeld or
Yeah.
watch Batman the Animated Series or all those episodic style series and pick like 99% of the episodes to watch, and they're going to be brought up to speed right away within the first 5 minutes or something. And same thing goes for the older comic series too, from the 70s and 80s,
Yep.
especially. But once it became like event style everything, episodic went out the window, but it became so much more difficult to have that accessibility to get
Like
into a series.
post Ultimates comics, super
Yeah.
decompressed, and you know, I
Yeah,
I
Hex
I,
Allen, decompressed storytelling.
I
Seriously.
get what you were saying because the other day I was drawing. I decided to put on some GI Joe, old the Rise Serpenter Rise miniseries.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Listening to that, and so there, Doctor Mindbender comes in. I guess it's his first time you're seeing him, and within 2 minutes, Cobra Commander insults him, saying, "I can't believe you're the head of our science division. How did you create these things if you're an idiot?" And then he pretty much shoots back like, "Oh man, you're great." And then he gets into another room and says like, "I'm going to make somebody to completely topple him." So 3 minutes. If I wouldn't have known who he was, I know exactly who he is, how long
Yeah.
he's been with Cobra, and what he's going to be doing for the next five like things. It's really it's lost writing, I think, nowadays, with people wanting to stretch things out
Yeah,
quite
just
a
like
bit.
and all storytelling is communication. It's just a way to communicate ideas.
Hmm.
And if you're gonna have these ideas communicated properly and effectively, you don't want to drone on and on and on about them.
Right.
You want to just get to the point as quick as you can so that you can keep the progress of the plot going and
Hmm.
develop characters. Character development isn't to have your characters like drone on about a situation or drone on about another character
Or get
or
from point A to
about
point B.
themselves. Everything is a soliloquy. It's insane. But that's the current modern trend with a lot of these things, and not everything is like that, but too much of it is like that. A lot of it is nowadays. But a lot of my inspiration for the storytelling style of King Cryptid was a lot of those classic comics I grew up with. Every single thing I love about comics is in this series. So there's thought balloons, there's the captions as well. There's also editor's notes. There's that
Oh
self-contained
yeah.
episodic style of storytelling I was talking about.
Hmm.
And even of course it's on newsprint. So you might be confused with the cover price, with the newsprint, with the storytelling, with the visual. You might think this came
Yeah.
out of and was lifted from like 1982 or 80, and anything like that. You might think like, wow, is this like a resurfaced series? Especially we kind of set it up as a long forgotten legend returns, where King Cryptid's kind of been in this secluded New England mountain area, the White Mountains
Hmm.
in New Hampshire, for about 30 or so years. He hasn't been seen, he hasn't been sighted. There's been no reports. They think he's dead. But for a long time, he was this mythological figure. But now he's returning because there's things happening on the earth that need his help again. So all of that, I think, if everybody loves comics the way I love comics, and I know a lot of people out there do, I think they're going to be really happy with the series. And like I said, I've got so many stories to tell, and every single time I come up with a new story, I have to stop myself from making offshoots of that story.
Such a temptation, I know. You got to
Yeah,
get from point A to point B without taking
because
a side road.
yeah, because with every new story, there's like a slightly new or different setting. There's a new character that's introduced with a new
Yep.
premise, a new conflict, or a new plot, something like that. And it builds upon a lot of the stuff that came before, but it also sets up a lot of stuff that's to come after. So the urge to then write the 3 or 4 more ideas down, and all of a sudden then you got like
Yeah.
80 or 90 issues
And you're
of
going like, I want to
stories.
explore the psyche of this character in this
Yeah,
scene where he's just
and
thinking,
I'm
no,
like,
no, no, no.
let me just put the brakes on it a little bit. And if readers really enjoy the character, I'll revisit some of the ideas I had, or maybe I'll have different ideas at that point in time.
You keep like a
But
notebook and just write down random
yeah,
ideas and
it's
lines and
yeah
stuff.
between
Okay.
that and then like on the phone and just writing down notes, when I'm
Yeah.
out and about and an idea hits me. So I have to make sure I stop myself from getting too deep into it, because then all of a sudden I'll be at like issue 200, and it's like, Pete, we didn't get the first 4 issues out yet. We got to make sure we kind of step back a little
That's
bit on the
right.
ideas for issues. But that's how exciting this series is
Yeah.
for me. Is that it's constantly building, and it's so much fun to tell stories like this. I don't know who would want to tell stories that are event driven, because you shoot yourself in the foot. You can't really just introduce new characters. You can't have your character in a different setting. You can't do like a flashback issue. You can't focus in on a
Hmm.
side character. You can't do a lot. You got to be a slave to the event. So
Oh
everything
yeah.
just feels like, oh man, all right, well, you got to wrap up this event. And then a lot of these events, they paint themselves into a corner. And then the ending all of a sudden is because I said so. And it doesn't make any sense with the characters, with the way things have been progressing. Because now they're trying to not just end it logically and in a predictable kind of way. They want to end it in a surprising way for the reader.
Hmm.
But the surprise is usually, surprise, everything you just read didn't matter. And
Oh yeah.
that's not a fun surprise.
That takes me back to like the Batman crossovers in the '90s, like Nightfall and No Man's Land, where they were so dang bloated.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they would cut out and edit things down to like a quick three or like trades or something like that. But if you were to get all of it, it's like 3,000 pages of let's try this new character. It didn't work. No, no, lots of chains. No, those chains don't work anymore. Let's go over here. We got 14 books we got to cram into this thing every single month.
Oh Lord.
And it
Yeah.
really does read schizophrenically because you got so many different writers trying to pull for their little contributions while wanting to do their own thing.
Yep.
And hey, Amanda's got a question here. Backer 1233, King Cryptid, the Stato flight. Interesting. When was the jerseys coming down off the winter campaign? She asks.
March 20th is the last day to get them, so the 21st they're coming
Okay,
down.
about a week.
Yeah.
Very nice. Justin says, I remember being mad at the issue of Ultimate Fantastic Four because it was an issue that just to get to Latveria, just a travel issue. Now I realize I had no idea how bad it was going to get.
Oh
Well, I mean, at
man.
least they weren't
Yeah.
sitting at a table talking.
Well, I mean, it could be interesting if you have it where like they're on the way to, and there's a conversation that occurs, and especially if you got the Fantastic Four, if you've got the Thing and the Torch kind of grinding each other, about a topic or something, and now you have a fight that embroils on the plane, and something can occur on the plane. I don't know. I never read the issue,
Right.
but like that's how I would set up that issue, and then something occurs. Maybe the Thing all of a sudden goes to punch out Torch, maybe punches a hole through the plane. They lose cabin pressure. There's something crazy that could happen. But
Right.
again, I don't know
Well,
how
you
that issue
think.
worked out. I
Michael
hope it wasn't just talking and the whole time in the cabin.
Michael of St. Joseph says it's a balance. Two episodic means the events of the episode won't matter. Well, that's, I suppose, why you leave those little threads that kind of tie through the entire thing.
Well, don't confuse episodic
Right.
for lack of continuity.
Or anthology.
Yeah, yeah. So by episodic, the events absolutely matter and play into the future events.
Right.
But what happens is with an episodic style of storytelling in a self-contained issue, it doesn't mean that this issue is dependent solely upon you knowing everything that's occurred before it.
Right.
And that this issue will also deeply impact all of your knowledge and enjoyment of what comes after. So think about things like any of your favorite episodic style shows. If a character were to die in something like this, we don't just bring the character back like nothing happened. If we do bring the character back at all, there's a deep explanation for it. There's something that
Right.
we talk about and then we reference. See this issue for when this thing happened. But don't ever confuse episodic style storytelling unless it's being handled really poorly. For lack of continuity,
Right.
and that does exist. It does exist
Sure.
where there are certain things, especially not just in comics, but when you find like if something is really just aimed for kids, you'll find that there is usually lack of continuity. There is more of a sense, at least nowadays, modern aimed for kids. Back in the '80s, I think they thought kids could at least handle understanding the progression of events with certain things and where characters would be. Thundercats comes to mind with when they go to the different planet, and they go from Third Earth to Thundera to New Thundera and things like that. They don't just all of a sudden the events of Third Earth never mattered anymore.
Right.
So characters still have memory. Characters still recognize each other if they've had a squaring off before or an encounter or anything like that. But yeah, it's poorly done episodic style storytelling when the continuity goes out the window, and it has happened in comics.
Which, from looking at the when you released, which I appreciate releasing lettered pages somewhere down here. When you were releasing those, and I'm looking at them, one thing that I noticed that I really like is just the lack of kind of a tongue-in-cheek sort of situation, like where you'd have
there's
somebody
none
makes a
of
new 8-bit game that looks like Nintendo, and they got to constantly reference that. Oh my gosh, this looks like feels like we're in 2023 or something. But if they just took that out and made like a legitimately
yeah.
love letter, it would soar so much better. Shovel Knight comes to mind. That one independent game of the year because it was very much like a DuckTales style Mega Man game or something like that played itself straight. And in here you've got like your editor notes, you've got like thought bubbles, which I'm told are out of style now, which I still use them myself. But it comes off as a love letter to comics to me. Not any specific type or era. Just comics.
Yeah, it's to me,
I
it's
appreciate
a
that.
tool to use within your storytelling, style of a comic writer or whatever it may be. That's just another weapon in the arsenal. To leave it there and say, well, no, I can't use that. To put like a self-imposed ban
We only
on
do
all
narration boxes here.
yeah, on all these different ways that you can tell your story effectively. It's so strange to me when that happens because I know that there's some writers too. We've even had them at Alterna that they outright refuse to use captions at all.
Really?
But
'Cause
what
it's a
can
show don't tell
happen?
situation?
Yeah, but they get almost too into the show don't tell to the point that it can become confusing. All of a
Hmm.
sudden, you can get a hard scene transition that isn't caught up to speed with the events of what just happened, and it makes it look like there's a page or two that's missing. When really it's like it's cut to a different scene. But you don't need like to maybe expound upon situations, and I try to get somewhat more poetic with some of the caption writing here, as if it is like a narrator every now and
Right.
then adding to the story, because the story is
Kind
being
of like
told. There's no qualms about it. This isn't, I'm not trying to set it up as if these are just events of people
right.
talking, or creatures talking or whatever, and
Well,
that's
it's
it.
sort
It's
of like
like,
what Stan Lee did,
this
where
is a
he was
story.
narrating all the Marvel books. It was
Yeah,
his
yeah.
voice, and he was the omniscient, like, now we're in New York and Spider-Man is running around. What's he gonna do?
Yeah, yeah, and it's like I'm kind of getting away from a lot of the describing what's occurring, but more about giving subtext or some kind of juxtaposition of what's occurring within the exposition, as opposed to saying like, in the scene above, it's describing like things that occur. Like if you could scroll up above, I want to just highlight what I was talking about
We got
with
like
the
here
exposition. One more page
one more
above.
guy here.
So here you have like
Yep.
King Cryptid, and there's this dead wolf, and King Cryptid's got his hands over him. So the whole scene kind of describes and sets up a little bit about what's occurring, but it also goes into the deeper process of a little bit of history about King Cryptid, a little bit about what he's trying to do right here, why he's trying to do it, and then you see King Cryptid's thought bubbles of he just hopes he's not
Right.
too late. So it provides this setup in this situation where you can instantly understand what's occurring, as opposed to if I just had, and no thought bubble here, if I just had King Cryptid splash page, he's got his hands over the wolf. You're like,
Mhm.
is he going to eat that wolf?
Yeah.
Is he going? Did he just hurt
Yep.
that wolf? Is
I
he doing
agree.
something good to the wolf? Like who knows? It just creates an immediate. And I don't want readers reading. It's my job as a storyteller to tell you the story. I
Right.
don't want the reader to tell the story to themselves and come up with what's occurring because I guess this is what's happening. And there's a lot of that nowadays with the show Don't Tell. It takes it
Yep.
to such a literal point where it ruins the aspect of storytelling and relies upon the reader solely to tell the story to themselves.
It's like Hex Allen here saying a lot of creators think they're making movies instead of comics, and that's
Yeah.
there've been a lot of creatives pushing that in the last 10, maybe 20 years about like make it more cinematic. And I think the
And
language of
there's,
classic
yeah.
comics, just comics themselves, has kind of been lost a little bit in trying to make storyboards for a movie.
Yeah. And there's a big push because of the fact that comics are breaking into movies and TV in an exhausting way at this point, if you had to
Yeah,
ask me. There's too freaking many of
there
them.
are.
But you can see then at the comic process, especially at the corporate level, this mindset of, well, will this adapt easily to film?
I hope it doesn't.
Can we sell this easily to film?
I think if it
You
doesn't, that's
know,
the mark of a good comic.
and yeah, and right there, it's like let them, if they're gonna make King Cryptid into a movie or a TV series, I'm never gonna tailor the issue with a budget in mind for a film or
Right.
a TV
It would
series.
have to
I'm
be
gonna
almost
go all the
animated.
way out as if I think the story needs it, and let them edit it down. Let them figure out what they want to tweak and change and how they'll
Mhm.
make the budget work. But there's too many comics nowadays, independent and corporate, that are being made that are so all about how do we get this greenlit as a film? How do we make it really easy for them to
Right.
make this a film? It's just the wrong way of doing it.
People circus is nonsense. Just like people say jump scares in movies are bad. It depends on how they are done. They can be good or bad.
Yeah.
Not that's 100% true. And that's a rule of thumb that I've been going with lately. Just like, can it be adapted into something like a film? Oh yes, then I need to go back to the drawing board and make sure that
I
this
tell
thing
you
is really difficult.
right now, when I get submissions from people, and a lot of them do this, but it's warning signs immediately for me. It's I don't sign anybody anymore that says this. I'm currently in the process of developing this for film and writing a screenplay,
Hmm.
and here's the comic. That right there off the bat to me is nope. I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't even care. It never looks good, but I don't care how good it looks because this person is already telling me the
They're gonna
comic
move
isn't really
on.
what I'm here for.
Right.
This is a means to an end. What I'm here for is to hopefully submit this as a storyboard
And that
to
was
a film
Marvel and
producer.
DC's downfall. When they were making books to make books, they made great books. But when they became subsidiaries of the bigger companies, they
Yep.
were just like, keep these copyrights fresh for us, would you? We don't
Yeah.
really care what's in there. And I think that if they were to, I don't know, leave the DC label behind and go start up a new company or something like that that was just a publishing company, you'd probably see better comics if they were on their own. Oh,
Oh yeah, well if the corporate companies weren't part of mega conglomerates at this point and they were solely comic publishers,
mm-hmm.
we'd be seeing a lot more creativity, a lot more standards of quality. You'd be seeing a lot more of the line being reduced. It wouldn't
Yep.
be one of these things where it's just bloated out there to, eat up some shelf space and make sure that everyone else is, because they got deep pockets, so they don't care if the book doesn't really sell.
Right.
If it's taking up a spot that another good book could have been at, and maybe grown an audience through there, and then eventually maybe get turned into a film or a game or whatever and compete with them where they really care. They're like, yeah, go throw whatever. Just put some pages on
Yep.
there, and who cares if they're filled with anything quality? It's such a weird industry, and it's always been about, obviously there's some kind of competition. There's always that competition of trying to be better,
Mm-hmm.
trying to not just necessarily outdo your competitor but outdo yourself, and top what you've put out before. A lot of creators have that kind of drive and have always had that kind of drive, but nowadays it's turning into something that's a little bit uglier, and I think it's the result of a lot of these weird things, like I said before, talking about filmmaking and Hollywood and the TV kind of siren
Mm-hmm.
call. That's really the thing that's taking precedence, as opposed to the story, the characters, entertaining the reader, making something of
Yep.
quality, making something that someone can pick up today or someone can pick up 20 years from now and still enjoy. It's more about the now, now, now. There's such a weird urgency to it to cash in on the gold rush of TV and film and merchandising
Yeah.
rights and yada yada, that it's storytelling of characters is taking a back seat.
And you'd think that they'd be looking at manga in terms of not so. That's the problem. I think all the wrong lessons are learned from manga. Like, people see the style and they go, "Oh, it's the quick cuts and the lines and the crazy violence or whatever like that." But really, those publishing companies are publishing companies. They put that stuff first, and it shows on the shelf. And I think those are the lessons that should be learned
Yeah. Well, it
from.
also shows there's a uniformity, for better or worse, with
Yeah.
manga. You know, it's that kind of thing where even though you've got, I mean, it used to be a strength within comics was that individualism in terms of certain
Yeah.
styles and things like that. And then as soon as comics got the individuality going, they immediately lost it. It became,
Yep.
the reason that like McFarlane and Jim Lee and all
Yep.
these other guys in the '90s were so successful and popular is because they looked so different. They
Yeah.
were so exciting. It was so unique. And then all of a sudden it turned right from that unique explosion to, can everyone start looking like Jim Lee and
Right.
McFarlane?
Yeah. We need
So
our house
yeah,
style, and this is the big guy. Well,
so
and
it
that's
went back again to that right away.
goes back to EC Comics, how popular that was. And there was like everybody had a different style. Sometimes in the same book, you had three different artists doing three
Yeah.
different things, which I appreciate in King Cryptid here because you've almost got like a
Yeah,
with
we
the
use
artist.
different artists have different styles, and I'm playing them to their strengths with
Right.
based on the story. So in issue one, there's a little bit more of a horror element. It's a little bit more
Sure.
mysterious. Christian Rossi does a great job with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with the kind of like blacking out certain areas and
Love the
creating,
coloring too.
yeah, creating that kind of atmosphere. And then in issue two, it's a little bit more of a straightforward. It's a black and white issue. It takes place on the night of a new moon, and there's a lot of high contrast scenes with lighting.
I love that.
And Nick Hunter does a fantastic job with that. And then issue three, it's about these four kids going out on a night in September '84 to go track down King Cryptid or aliens or whatever they could find in the forest around them. They're all into the paranormal stuff. They just saw Ghostbusters. They're really excited about all this stuff. So Alex Jovich comes in, and he's got a really great expressive style, and he draws kids really well.
Mm-hmm.
There's some artists out there that they might be really talented, but they draw kids like frightening little adults.
Jim Aparo, I remember that was one of his weaknesses. His Robin
Yeah,
was
where like they have like the proportions still of an adult head
mm-hmm.
with adult features, but like on a child's body, and they're shorter. and it it looks very frightening. And so Alex does a terrific job
Yep.
making them look like the 10 to 13-year-old kids that they're supposed to look
Hmm.
like. But then issue 4 is Kier Covington, and he's got these great pencils and inks on it with Christian
Yep.
Rossi doing the flat colors, and it really highlights Kier's ability to have such great line work, and it harkens back to this kind of standard adventure style sci-fi fantasy sort of story, in terms of that clear cut artistic visual. So everybody is being selected and put and played to their strengths, which is so important, because if you have everybody, moving around and doing these different kinds of things and playing out of the box in terms of what their skill set really could
Hmm.
be, the issue is going to suffer for it.
Well, this is, I mean, the nice thing about this, especially the coloring and stuff, is it's going to look good no matter what paper you decide to put it on. Um,
Yeah, yeah. We got
you've
this
got
virtual digital newsprint thing going on here, but
you've got like the newer coloring does not look great on newsprint. Sometimes it gets a little muddy and washed out, like the really gradient, shiny, kind of like if you were to take some Image Comics, that old like Malibu style coloring, and put that to newsprint. Oof, especially if you made it grayscale, you can't tell what's going on. But it's funny because you've got your artists here, and it's almost like if you have keep on having them come back, it's going to be like a like your favorite villain coming onto a Batman episode. Like, ah,
oh,
boy,
totally. Yeah,
here's
yeah.
another Penguin episode. I'm so excited, or
And that's
something like
another
that.
great thing with making it
Yeah,
episodic is that if these were 4 issues that were cohesive as a story arc, it would feel really weird
yeah.
to have 4 different artists.
Hmm.
But instead, they're episodic, they're self-contained, and then in the future, on issue 5, we're going to have Jeff Elkins, but on issue 6, we're going to be bringing back, I believe issue 6 anyway is the issue. It might be either way, it might be 6 or 7. I gotta look at it again. But Frankie B. Washington's gonna be one of the artists on that. Nick Hunter's coming back. Alex
Ooh,
Jovich is coming back for issue 8, and Kier's coming
awesome.
back with Christian for issue 9. So even though we're gonna still have different artists on each issue, unless it's a story arc, then it's just one
Right.
artist doing the whole story arc. It'll have that play in terms of, like you were talking about, when you see like, oh man, I really like that guy, and let's see what he does on this issue and who he's doing it with. Nick
Right.
Hunter's going to have his issue is going to be with a werewolf. I think he's going to do a great job with
Oh,
that.
sweet.
And then Alex is going to revisit those kids again. They're going to be a little older, 3 years older, when we revisit them Halloween 1987, for issue 8. But he's going to revisit them and that world again as well. So we're still going to have this kind of cohesiveness through with different artists that are becoming, obviously they're going to become not only my favorites, but they're going to become reader favorites as well.
Dr. Mass asks, why don't more people do newsprint? Is it the issue modern colors don't work? I think that's part of it, that modern colors don't work. I think that,
It's yes and no, because I mean at the same time we have a lot of books at Alterna that have modern coloring.
mhm,
It's more about the pre-press of it.
yeah,
And if you've got bad coloring, you've got bad coloring. So you could
yeah,
have terrific paper, but if the colorist is not understanding, you can't muddy up these colors. You can't put two different kinds of colors together that don't work when they're together. There's no
hmm,
contrast. If they're not following the rules of like color value and things like that, if they're not doing color theory at all, it could be the greatest paper stock in the world. It's still going to look like crap.
well, I think
Um,
technology's improved too, because I noticed some of them talked about like, to have brown, you got to have put light orange or orange on, and then it kind of used to bring it
Yeah, because
down.
different colors will look differently next to each
Hmm.
other. They won't
Yep.
look like the same color standing alone, when you put it next to a different color, that
Right.
offsets it, either complements it or is going against it. So it's I think it's more about finding, because paper stock doesn't really matter too much when you get into the kinds of numbers. Like if we were printing like 100,000, the newsprint cost of a paper stock compared to whatever's used nowadays, let's say if it's like a 70-pound mat or something,
Hmm.
it doesn't really matter too much in terms of the cost
No.
difference once you get those high numbers. But in terms of the feel and the look, I think they look at it and they go, this looks cheaper, this looks
Yeah.
inexpensive. We're going to market it to get more money from people by saying that this is a better paper stock. And in some ways, I mean, yeah, it's a more premium paper stock. But again, like I was saying, if the coloring is bad, it doesn't matter if it's newsprint. It doesn't matter if
Right.
it's a nice 80-pound premium paper quality, whatever. it's still going to look bad. So I know there's a lot of people out there that prefer newsprint. I prefer newsprint. I don't know why it's not more of an option for publishers just in general that are maybe trying to introduce people to certain lines of books.
Oh
If I
yeah,
was a publisher at Marvel or DC, I would definitely want to have a more economy line that was a reprint line.
make it part of those facsimile editions.
Yeah, and instead, what do they do right with the facsimiles? They jack the price up. I see
Right.
some of these facsimile editions and like the True Believer editions and things like that, and I'm like, these are in like the 50-cent bin at my local shop, and
That's
this thing's got a $4 price.
well, it's a collector's market right now, and that's why comics are shrinking because fewer and
Oh,
fewer people are collecting now. They're not
yeah.
getting it to read it; they're getting it to slab it and throw it in a closet.
Well, yeah. There's so many different gimmicks within comics nowadays that the '90s would blush.
Mm.
They would be like, oh man, glow in the dark covers and hologram covers don't look so bad. You didn't have to order 200 of this title that doesn't sell to get like the one hologram cover. It was just an option that was put out there, and if you want to buy that issue, here it is. It's a little bit more money, but you get this really cool premium cover, and it's a little bit of a thicker issue, and there was at least some kind of method to the madness. Now the only part of that method is more sales and hoping the bottom line works and inflating the market with this false collector's market of there's variants and there's limited
Yeah,
scarcity. Who cares?
right.
Is the story good? Is there a cool new character being introduced? Is there something that's occurring that matters within the plot here?
It's kind of like trying to
Um,
capture just the hype part of the '90s that got people
yeah,
running into stores versus just word of mouth about how great they had a time reading the story.
absolutely. And there's so much of that. And obviously, at Alterna, we don't try to do any of that. I try to go against the grain and do what I feel is best, not just for the reader, but best for the story to get it out there.
Right.
You can't have a price point that's not indicative of someone giving the line a shot. Of course, we're going to end up raising prices sooner or later, probably into the $2 range, but we're still probably going to be much
Oh
cheaper
no.
than everyone out there. I mean, these things could
Right.
go up to like $2.99, and they're still going to be in like the top 5% of the cheapest comics being offered.
Right.
We're not even close to that. We're at a dollar. If anything, we went back. We cheekily went back a cent because Mark Millar's all like, "I'm going to have the cheapest comics at $1.98 or not $1.99." So I'm like, let's put them out at $1.98. Maybe we'll get all the press that Mark Millar got, even though our $1.50 price didn't
Your
get too much
move, Mark.
press, and our $1.99 price didn't really get too much press either. Now that I think about it, but it's nice that Mark Millar could get that kind of press. I mean,
But
he's
it
of
got
course
that
going
word
to
of
get,
mouth though.
yeah, he's going to get more than me.
Yeah.
The only kind of press that I seem to get nowadays is the kind that I would rather not have. But it is what it is.
Well, they say any press is good press. I'm not 100% sure anymore, but
Yeah, they say it. Then you get it, and you're like, I don't know. I like it when it's nice.
Dr. Mass, yeah, Dr. Mass says it's like Funko. I see so many new comics in dollar bins. Well, Funko isn't even getting to be in the dollar bins, quote unquote, anymore. They're going to the dump.
Oh
Thirty
yeah, they go to
million dollars.
right. Where's the climate change protesters for that? All the Funko Pops.
Yeah, at least they're gonna chop them up so no one can rush in and grab any from the dump.
Oh man.
Uh, Peep says such a huge but fun rabbit hole to go down. Currently experimenting with the Zorn palette. Will save money on the paint though. Let's see. Justin says they jack these prices of the first issues now too. It baffles me. I suppose, yeah, get in on the ground floor. It's a #1. You're gonna want to buy it.
Yeah, it's because the first
Expensive.
issue, it's not for you. It's not for the reader. They're jacking up the price because the retailer, it's like they can't resist buying too many of them, and they know that the retailer is going to most likely order issue 2 before they even know how issue 1 sold. So they're going to order conservatively, and that's going to usually be like a 60 to 50% drop off.
Oh yeah.
And so they
Very
go,
common.
what's the point of a loss leader on a issue 1? Let's jack that baby up. They used to do the loss leader issue 1, and then issue 2 or 3 or whatever it was would be $1 more. But then I think they looked at the numbers and said, we're losing money here.
Most
The
people
only
buy
thing,
the issue 1 and then out of
yeah,
curiosity, and then
the
jump
retailers
up.
are ordering a ton of issue 1, and issue 2, it just goes into the basement. So it's unfortunate. It's not a customer first mentality in terms of thinking about what will get this in the hands of the customer? What is the best thing for that customer? Do we give them a good story for a good price? Are we giving them value? Because value and cost are two different things. So it's like you can have tremendous value in something that cost wise is practically worthless. But you can also have tremendous cost on something that has no value. So they
Right.
don't look at it and go, "Oh, let's give them a good value. Let's make sure that they're getting their money's worth and more." Instead, it's like, let's just make sure we're getting all their money as much as we can get it,
Well,
which is not a good way to do
I'm looking
business.
at this page and just seeing the amount of words that are on it. And I think, when you charge $5, $6 for something that has, geez, I don't even know if you have anything. Well, maybe we'll just cut two of these out. So you get like just the one thing, some pages have like two of these, and then maybe one word thought balloon or word bubble or something like that. And that's the whole page. And you read through that in maybe 5 minutes,
Oh yeah.
if that. So you pay $7 for a good 5 minutes of, I suppose they're thinking people are going to sit and pore over the art. Little kids, I mean, most kids do that, and most art
If
enthusiasts.
it's amazing art, but
Yeah,
it
past
usually
that,
isn't. Yeah.
it's just kind of goes into a pile and collects some dust. So it's I
And again, if they
appreciate.
were being if they were being sold at like a disposable price, that'd be one thing. If they were
Right.
like, "Hey, look, what do you want? These are 99 cents." Like this is a pretty good value for 5 to 10 minutes of entertainment, 99 cents. But when
Hmm.
it turns into, like you said, like $5 or $6, and you're done with it in 5 minutes, and then it's not even a full cohesive story. It's like, oh hey, you want the rest of the story? Buy the next 4 issues. So you got to spend, what is that then, 20 to $30 to get the full
Yeah.
cohesive story. And over the course of Lord knows how long, 4 months to a year, depending on who's putting it out, all of a sudden they wonder why they're losing ground to things like video games. You can spend 50, $60 on a video game and play that thing for like 100 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. I mean, not to mention the fact that the trade comes out maybe with some bonus stuff in it.
Oh yeah, well
Instead of fish
that's
for
a
that.
whole other concept. When comics went down that road, I thought that when they had the graphic novel in the trade, it would have been great to leave that with the higher price tag. It's a heftier book. It's a more adult mindset. So that would be better to have out of continuity stories told with these characters aimed at
Oh
like an
yeah.
audience of 16 or older, and leave in continuity, more accessible, all ages kind of feel, not aimed at kids but all ages.
Yep.
Leave that for the single issues and leave those lines alone. And instead, it turned into like not just the epic, grand Dark Phoenix sagas and Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen get the graphic novel evergreen treatment. Every six freaking issues of any damn thing that gets put out is getting a graphic novel or a trade, which is
Yeah.
just, you're training your readers as well to be like, well, I'll just get maybe the $10 trade instead of the $20 of issues.
Yeah. And it goes on a shelf a little bit more like it's. Well, I remember when trades were basically like almost printing overstock. So I have the what is it, Terminator versus RoboCop. If you open that up, it's literally the issues bound in together. They've got the ads, they've got the covers front and back on there. It's just got a cover and a back cover thrown
Yeah,
on it
yeah.
with the spine. Like that was back in the early days when they were experimenting, trying to figure the whole thing out, like Death of Superman and stuff like that.
Oh,
Uh,
yep.
it's Travigo says, is it possible to produce a 64-page full color magazine format comic in 2023 to sell at $5? That's a tall order. And what's the print run that wouldn't be insulting to a printer when approaching them? You're probably looking at like in the thousands for something like that to get as much of a discount as you can, because the more you print, the
Yeah,
cheaper it gets.
2000 is usually a sweet spot number
Yep.
if you're printing at least an overall of 2000. The first 1000 is kind of like, yeah, we turned the machine on and it spit out 1000. That's how fast these things print up.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll really start getting savings once you hit the 2000 and higher. But of course, it doesn't matter if you're selling 100 copies and you printed 2,000 and you're like, look, my unit cost is so much lower, but your
Right.
overall cost is through the roof and you only really have enough audience to sell 1 to 200 copies. So it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter what great unit cost you got if overall you can't sell through 2,000. But I mean, it's possible. It's absolutely possible. It just depends what your numbers look like. I would recommend, running a crowdfunder for that. That's what's so great about crowdfunding right now too, is that you
Mm-hmm.
can mitigate your risk and also let your readers know, here's what you're getting, here's what the book's about, here's what I'm all about. and building up some confidence with that. For anyone doing their first crowdfunder though, or even
Mm.
second or third, I would recommend really consider starting small
Yep.
and lower your cover price. A lot of these guys I see nowadays, they start off these first time crowdfunders, and they look at the big guys and they say, "Oh, the big guys are charging 25 for their 40 to 60 page books. I should charge that too."
Mm.
The big guys though have been around for decades,
Yep.
and they got a lot of experience with those decades. If you're just kind of starting out and you've just been making comics for a couple of years or less, certainly you have to understand that what you're producing is of a very different quality. Now,
Yep.
unless you are, of course, hiring one of said big guys to draw your book or whatever it may be, you still have to understand what that looks like and feels like from a reader point of view. So if you sit there thinking like, oh, the big guy is charging whatever, I can charge that, and then I'll make my $50,000, $100,000 campaign too. You're not
Mm.
gonna do that.
No.
And I
And
see a
watch
lot
your
of
extras
people.
too.
Yeah. I see a lot of people getting burned out and let down because they're having that approach instead of saying, right now it's all about me getting my stuff out there, building a readership, which means building trust in that readership, and making sure that I'm using this opportunity not just to create something, but to learn as I'm creating something. Because by the time you do this for 10 years, then you can sit there and go, absolutely, I'm worth $25 an issue or
Right.
whatever it may be, because you got 10 years of experience. You've been doing this for so long. You got a long track record. And now, you can actually do it. But if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I don't want to put 10 years into comics, seriously, go do something else with your
Yep.
life.
It's kind of a way of life and
Flat
a
out.
labor of love.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's going to take you 10 solid years to even learn your way around what the hell you're doing in this space. And I've been doing this for 17, and I think I'm almost there.
Well, landscape keeps. Dr. Mess says, I think that's how CrossGen did so well on trades and bookstores. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough to save them. Yeah, they had a heck of a lineup, but they just bled money left and right. Peep says, true, it needs to be something you remember, and if there's little or no words, Sin City Silent Night springs to mind. No words, but I could pick that up and have a look a lot. And Frank Miller he's a genius with the
You gotta
composition.
be, yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta be a one in a million storyteller to tell practically a silent or close to silent comic.
Dr. Mass asks, how much can you trim off the cost of a book by going black and white? I'd say close to, 40%? Sometimes 50%?
In newsprint, it's probably like a 20% difference. It's
Okay.
not too big of a difference. The biggest cost in newsprint is turn the damn machine on.
Right.
But as far as like offset, but especially print on demand. Print on demand, you'll notice it big time. It'll
Yep.
be like
The
40,
digital
50%.
printers. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that's a run that you're doing that's usually under 200 to 300 books is going to be print on demand. That's going to be cost effective. If you're thinking of doing something over 500 to 700, just do 1,000, go offset.
Yep.
If you're thinking that your book, you've got enough to warrant a 5,000 or higher run, go web press. So web press is generally how, at least they used to all be printed this way. They should still be printed this way, though. The bigger companies that sell, 10,000 plus or whatever will go web press
Yep.
because the cost savings are huge. But you're not going to see those cost savings unless you're printing a big number. Otherwise, if you do go web press, it's going to be like, 10 grand on a 1,000 run. And you're going
Right.
to say, what the hell's Pete talking about? I was like, well, you ask them for a quote instead about 10,000 copies, and you'll be like, oh, that's what people's talking about.
It's Travco says, thanks. I'd be a first timer and really just got off this weird idea. I want to sell a big book for cheap, a lost leader format. I want to sell more rather than just make to build an audience. Well, I suppose that's one thing that I would say for anybody that's trying to do a crowdfunder is do not, especially if you're new, do not go with the $500 make it so you can get the algorithm situation.
Yeah, I see a lot of people do that. Oh my lord.
You get your $500. Now you are locked in. You have to make those books, and you find out that it's like $2,000 to make the books if you're not paying anybody.
And that's just to make,
Yeah.
to make the damn thing,
And then ship it and
yeah.
taxes or whatever like that. If you don't have some sort of like a doing business as or an incorporation or something like that, you're going to be on the hook for that, a third of that money that you're getting.
If you need $5,000 to make your book, ask for $5,000. If you need just whatever you need to, let's say you're doing everything, and if you just need stuff for printing and shipping, Still, seriously, ask for like $500 higher than that.
Yep.
I see so many people that do that. They put the $500 goal there. They're sitting there going, okay, great. I need like 7 or 8. The algorithm will get me there now. And I mean 7 or 8 grand, not 7 or 800. And then they flatline around $2,500. And then all of a sudden, if they're, a little bit unethical, all of a sudden you never hear from them again.
Mm.
And they don't refund your money and they don't make a comic anymore, and they just put their head in the sand and go, okay, I'm just going to pretend that never happened.
We'll just wait for them to forget.
Yeah, and luckily there's not too many of those people
Right.
out there. But I don't want to see anybody, really hurting themselves, and you need like 7 to 8 grand to do everything you got to do,
Mm-hmm.
and you only raise like 2,500, and now you're out of pocket 5,000, and it's just going to get worse from there.
Yep.
So
And if you don't
ask
make it, that should tell you something in terms of you
exactly.
need more of an audience. You need to maybe put a couple of practice pages out to show people, get them used to seeing your art, build a repertoire, get your channel going, just talk to people or be in chats and build from there. Because if you're noticing you're putting stuff out and you get like 2 likes, you start a channel and you get like 15 people.
Yeah, people forget the first part of that crowdfunding word,
Yeah.
and you don't want to think, okay, once I launch it, I'll build a crowd. You want to have a crowd to direct
Mm-hmm.
people to it. So that involves, being active, putting your stuff out there, sharing it with people, letting them know who you are before you just show up on the scene with a crowdfunder, and then expect them to pay attention once it's up. You want to do your due diligence long before that, and you want to make sure people are kind of getting aware of what it is you're working on, because I see a lot of that too. Even at Alterna, I've seen it with creators where I have to like take the jaws of life and pry them open and say, talk about your book,
Right.
show people your stuff, talk about your character, get out there. If you're not going to get on someone else's channel, if you don't want to make your own thing, if you don't like Twitter, whatever it is, find something that does work for you and use it, and see if people are paying attention. If they're not paying attention after a while, a month or two, whatever, of trying it out, try something else. Stick within your comfort zone and then slowly grow out of that comfort zone. Because otherwise, again, like I said before, if you don't want to do what's necessary for the job, why are you applying?
Right.
It's like saying, I want to go be I just want to make money, I want a job. And they're like, okay, well, you can go be a bridge builder. And you're scared to death of heights.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, maybe, I'll get used to it. I'll get used to the heights, And then you show up on the job and you're like, see ya. You're pissing your pants. You're up at the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
The wind is hitting you and you're just shaking and you can't move and you're paralyzed. And that's a lot like what it is with people that come in. They go, oh, how hard can it be? It's like anything else. I'll learn as I go along. And if you haven't taken even some of the steps to make sure that you're at least comfortable in that region,
Mm.
just get out of that. Do something else with your life. Do something else with your time. You're going to ruin your love of comics. I mean, I don't want to have this thing where I'm sounding like discouraging of people who want to do it.
No, it's a warning.
But to be perfectly honest, if these words discourage you, it's speaking to you in that way where you're like, oh man, I'm scared. I don't want to make my own comic. Good. They should scare you, and that's not for you. Something else is for you.
It'd save you trouble.
Yeah. Because these words, if you really want to do it, you should be like, ah, whatever, Pete, I'm still doing it. I love it. I want to do it.
You do it
Then
'cause you
good.
have to.
You got the right attitude.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where I think comics are one of those deceptively simple things where somebody looks at a page, even if it's something like, say, Scotty Young, which looks easy to draw. It's not easy to draw. You look at it, you go, I can do that, and it does not come out on the page like it does in your head.
Yeah, I see so much of that. Oh man, especially in submissions. That's why I had to tailor back submissions. We used to be open 24/7, 365. And the first time in our 17-year history, last year, I got no submissions in that were qualified for a series.
Mm-hmm.
None of them. For the first time in 17 years at that point in time, I didn't feel like any of these were good enough to sign on for a series. We had a couple of it came out in a Wednesday shorts that were good enough for a short story, but nothing for a series.
I think that's where people should almost begin. Is it came out on Wednesday? Not only
start with the short stories
because it's like 4 pages. You can see how you work with you. You can see how your stuff looks in print, in printed like that. You can kind of you've got a small deadline
Yep.
that you can be, and you don't have to
Small
worry
budget,
about a
small
follow up.
deadline.
Yep, you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about a big follow up and another 23 pages coming in. That should be the goal. Get one of those done first. If it's a good experience, hey, maybe one more. I don't know, and then try to develop a thing.
Yeah.
That's why I say you start like say, hey, can I do a page? You do yourself one page. Great. Can I do 4 pages? How long does that take me to do 4 pages with my whatever lifestyle I got? Great. 4 pages is easy. Can I do 8? I'm gonna plan out 8 pages. Get that 8 pages done. Hey, can I do an issue? How long does that issue take? And once you're comfortable with, because if you can do 4 pages, you can do 8 pages. If you can do 8 pages, you can do 16. And if you can do that, then you can make a book. But it's just a matter of how long, how difficult it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you approach a publisher, like a lot of the times I'll ask someone who seems like they're on the cusp and I'm like, what's your production schedule like? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm
Get it
like,
done when I get it done.
that's not exactly the right way to answer that question. But so I say, okay, well, how long does it take you to make a page? And they go, oh, like a week or two. And I'm thinking, well, then this is
Oof.
not for you. You know, self-publishing, that's for you. Don't go to a publisher yet. The worst thing that can happen is you oversell yourself and go, well, once I'm in there, I'll wing it and I'll go along with it. And then all of a sudden, now you're contracted. Now you've got deadlines. Now you're missing deadlines. Now your readers, if you did manage to put an issue out, now all of a sudden your readers are waiting a year or two for the next issue. And now your sales are tanking and you're wondering why. It's like,
Right.
well, why? Because they think that you just disappeared. And your publisher, if you've got one lucky enough to put the damn issue out a year or two later, is going to go, if I keep doing this, we're not going to make any money. You're not going to make any money. Everyone here is going to hurt for it. And you're just going to be building up a reputation of someone who can't seem to get their stuff straight with putting out any kind of consistency.
It's gonna hurt
So
trust in just comics too.
yeah, so just take your time. I see a lot of that. I see a lot of people who are impatient about getting their comic out there. Take your
Mm-hmm.
time, be honest with yourself, and realize that this is going to be a lot harder than you think it is.
It's a
And that's
marathon,
okay.
not a sprint.
But yeah, but take your time, work on those small shorts, work on whatever it is. If you're not an artist, hire an artist.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not a letterer, hire an editor, a letterer. Hell, hire an editor too, if while you're at it. But you know, all these different things are like, I'll just do everything and I'll just learn, and then it'll be okay. All right, I respect that mindset, but again, that should come with realistic expectations for not just yourself, but for your potential readers, and especially if you plan on going to a publisher. And I don't recommend going to a publisher if you're just starting off. I
Yeah.
recommend taking it easy, get your stuff out there, work hard at it, learn as much about the craft as you can, get good about as many things as you possibly can. And then, of course, the big part is thicken that skin and be prepared to have people say what they like and don't like about it, especially when you're starting off. Those are very valuable words to hear. But you want to put your stuff out in the space and you want to let people know, what do you think of this? Tell me what you hate about it. Tell me
Yep.
what you love about it. And if anything, view that as so valuable for you in terms of you're getting a free editor,
Yep.
because some people go, well, I don't want that kind of critique from the reader or the potential reader because they're the reader. I'm the creator, they're the reader. They don't get to tell me what to do. Yes, they do. And they'll tell you what to do as soon as they get that issue and they hate it and they don't buy the next one. That's them telling you what to do. And
Right.
then you're going to go, oh, I should have listened to the reader. Is well, now it's too late. So put your stuff out there, build a rapport with the reader. Because how cool would that be? You're starting off and you're saying, hey, just be honest with my stuff, and you're taking all the feedback and you're learning from it and you're incorporating it. And there's going to be some people that go in there and say they hate it and they can't explain why,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
happens. Even
It's
right
not for
now, like
everybody.
yeah, every now and then I'll get people who just say they love it and they can't tell me why. They just love it. It speaks to them. And
Mm-hmm.
then and I'm the same way with some stuff too. And then some people will just hate it and they can't verbalize why. But they just hate it. Just it's like one of those, you got one of them faces I just want to punch. It's like that kind of a thing.
Tied to some subconscious childhood
And
memory that they
and
blocked out.
and not you, Staddle. You don't got one of them faces I want to punch. But it's like it's that kind of thing. Maybe someone's watching at home and they're like, Pete, I just want to punch your lights out. You just got one of those faces. I just don't like them. Um, so
Change everything.
so it could be that thing. Be prepared for that kind of irrational praise and irrational hatred of what it is you're working on, but don't let it waver you from what it is that you're creating. You
Yeah.
need some kind of solid vision with what you're doing, but learn from what it is that people are talking about because
Sometimes it's like medicine. You might
it's
not like
valuable
it, but you got
stuff.
to get better once you take it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. We covered some
Did we
ground
fill an
today.
hour? We
We
filled almost
filled
an
an
hour. We
hour.
got 20 seconds.
We got 20 seconds. Well, we'll go through some chat here. Gordon Goodbrother says, stop trying to communitize your work and capitalize on your work. Balance your excitement with putting something out with the reality that you're engaging in business. Citizen Rana says, yep. Pete's holding up the boombox for us. I think restrictions can make you more creative, and that's certainly true. When you look back at the old 30s and 40s movies when they had the Hays Code going on and they were trying to get all kinds of stuff past it, it made for some classic flicks that still hold up. Let's see here. Citizen Rona says maybe not punch.
Yeah. See,
Slap
that's what I'm
around.
talking about. He's only just slap me around a little
Here's a
bit.
closed-fisted slap.
It's that kind of thing. But that's what it's going to be. Some people are going to look at your art and they just don't like the look of it. They want to slap it around, and then other people they want to put it on the wall and worship it and love it, and then they maybe can't verbalize why. Be prepared for that kind of criticism and praise, and don't let it sink or float you. Don't live and die by it.
Right.
Just know that it's going to be there, and just keep doing your thing. Be grateful that they're saying something. Because the worst thing that's going to happen when you're creating is if you just met with silence. That's the worst.
Heck, it's the internet. Sometimes people just go on and give you crap because they like you.
Yeah, just busting balls.
That's right. Well, everybody, it's been a great show. Good Monday. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you very much for stopping by, and to the people watching on replay, great to see you. Go visit alternativecomics.com or go visit Alternative Comics Winter Campaign or the King Cryptid campaign on Indiegogo. Links are in this chat, but they certainly will be in the description later on. Have a good day, everybody.